Gaze reading where the greats drop by. Trendy authors tell us all the who, what, and why. Anyone can listen, cause we're spoiler free. Gaze reading, from Pulitzer stars to book club picks, where the curious minds can get their fix. So you say you're not gay, well that's okay. There's something for everyone. Gaze reading.
Hello and welcome to Gaze Reading. I'm your host, Jason Blitman. On today's episode, I am joined by Ruben Reyes Jr., author of Archive of Unknown Universes. I got to sit down with Ruben in person earlier this year to talk about his story collection, There Is a Rio Grande in Heaven, and you could find that full conversation over on the Gaze Reading Substack. The guest gay reader today is the wonderful Chloe Michelle Howarth, author of Sunburn, which is also out now. Both of their bios are in the show notes, and both of these books offer exactly what many of us are searching for right now: an escape, a mirror, a place to process, or just a place to rest. These weeks, y'all, they just keep on coming. I don't know. In times like this, I find myself turning to books, and it's been hard to focus, but it has also been a bit of a refuge, and I have been doing my darndest to find that balance between those things, and I hope that is true for you too. It's sort of a way to make sense of the chaos, a chance to feel seen, a way to connect with our fellow book lovers. So I hope you're taking care of yourselves, and, I don't know, what are you doing to take care of yourself? Comment on a Gaze Reading post and let us know, because I think everyone could use some advice of how we're coping right now. Anyway, I hope you had a good 4th of July weekend. I posted some thoughts about what independence means to me over on the Gaze Reading Substack. So if you want to check that out, that post is free over there. And, I've said it before, but reading queer stories is one of the most powerful acts of resistance and restoration that we have. And, to support queer authors is even better. And so just another little reminder, another nudge, that the book club partnership with Alstora starts this month. And every month we'll be spotlighting an LGBTQIA+ author, and they earn a significantly higher percentage of profits than through other platforms. So I'm so excited to be partnering with Alstora on that. This month's pick, of course, is Disappoint Me by Nicola Dinan. And in case you are unfamiliar, when you sign up, you also get access to a membership to Alstora, which means wholesale book prices, about 30% off all of their website. You get to join the group chats online, and also Alstora donates a children's book to an LGBTQIA+ youth. So all really great and important things. You could find all of that information in the show notes, and the link to sign up is on the Instagram link tree. We're at Gaze Reading on Instagram. And if you like what you hear, please follow the podcast, leave a review, share it with a friend. It really helps more than you know. All of that said, please enjoy my conversations with Ruben Reyes Jr. and Chloe Michelle Howarth. My allergies are going insane today. I feel the pressure in my eyes. I feel it in my throat. I'm like, what is happening?
I'm right with you. So we'll cough through this.
I know. We're like on a journey this morning. Well, officially, welcome to Gaze Reading. There's a Substack live recording of us.
Yes.
This is the real deal.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here and to be chatting with you again. We had such a good time in Palm Springs. I feel like that was such a great conversation.
It was. I know it was so fun. And you did your first live in-person reading? Yeah. From this book.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
What a journey.
Yeah. It's like time moves so quickly and so slowly all at once.
It's like part of what this book is about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Ruben, what is your elevator pitch for Archive of Unknown Universes?
Yes. So this is my debut novel, and it basically follows two families over alternate timelines of the Salvadoran Civil War, which for listeners was a 12-year conflict that was U.S. funded. And so the book is a lot about the impacts of that. And it really hinges on the life or death of a guerrilla soldier who was involved in the revolutionary movement. In one timeline, he lives, in one timeline, he dies. It's also a love story, a breakup story, speculative fiction, historical fiction. I think you read this and see how messy my brain is.
Yes. I was like taking notes for myself along the way in the back of the book. I was like, okay, this person is connected to this person, and this person loves this person, and this person is married to that person. And which universe am I in?
Yeah. It's a lot. I think that's also why it is like my first novel. Like when I was thinking about this book, I think I've shifted a little bit, but when I was writing this, I was in grad school and I was like all like big brained about it, right? I was like most stories can be a short story, because I read a lot of long novels that I was like, you could have cut 200 pages from this or whatever. And so I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to write like a novel for the sake of writing a novel if the story doesn't require it. And then I had this idea and I was like, okay, wait, there's a lot going on here. There's no way I can do this in a short story. I think I'm going to try writing a novel. And that's like the conversation I had with myself before starting.
And to be honest, and to the listener, it is not a 600-page book. Like
No.
it is still a tight novel, but
totally.
But it packs a punch. It makes me think about, my background is in theater, and so thinking about the difference between a 10-minute play that like a student might do versus a 1-act play with no intermission versus a 2.5-hour play versus a 3.5-hour play, right? And this, I think, is that solid like 90 minutes, no intermission. Tells the full story, but it doesn't overstay its welcome.
Yeah, those are the like books and media. Like this is my thing with movies. Let's go back to the 90-minute movie. Like I think Jurassic Park is probably like 93 minutes or something. Is the perfect length, and like we've lost sight of it a little bit. And with novels, I think, don't get me wrong, like I love if it's good, I love an 800-page novel.
100%.
But it's like a hard sell, I think, for many ways. And I honestly have read many that needed to be shorter. And so I think I wanted to be like, this needs to be punchy and the right length and develop the characters and the relationships and do all that. But yeah, I was really cognizant of making sure it was as punchy and I wanted every scene and every sentence to be essential.
You have to really think about what you're writing under those circumstances. Yeah. And something like a 90-minute movie, or any movie for that matter, if a musical happens to be longer or a play happens to be longer than 90-ish minutes, there will be an intermission, right? So you do have a pause or a break. But with a movie, it's like you need to earn those 3 hours so that person will sit there and hold their pee and be thirsty,
exactly,
be uncomfortable.
Yeah. I went to watch Killers of the Flower Moon when it came out, and I loved that movie, actually. I thought it was actually like justified the whatever 3 hours, whatever length it was. But I was wearing some shoes that were a little too tight. And an hour and a half in, I was like, I gotta pop these. This is gross, but I gotta pop these boots off right now. I gotta let my feet breathe.
That's so funny.
So
you're writing a book where people will keep their shoes on.
Yes,
right.
Definitely.
I like don't know how to. It's a weird topic to talk about just because of the nature of all of this. But El Salvador is in the news a lot right now.
It sure is, yeah.
And I like don't. There isn't a question. I think it's more like, how does that feel for that to be as prescient as it is, as important of an element of your book? And it's weird.
It's super weird. It feels super weird. I grew up in SoCal, right? Which is there's a huge Salvadoran population in SoCal. Like all of my dad's family's out there now. And there are like historical and political reasons for all that, right? The kind of migration to SoCal. But it's also like a very Mexican city. Like Mexicans are the largest population. And I think growing up, I started to explain to some classmates where El Salvador was, what El Salvador was, because they would assume that I was Mexican, which is actually an experience that a lot of Salvadorans have written about and talked about. And I think part of it's because people just didn't know, right? It's a pretty small country. Like its history isn't taught here in any, there are some people doing it, but no systemic way. And I think like in, when we think of Latinos in the US, like Mexicans tend to be the story that people know about for understandable reasons. And so now the fact that like El Salvador is front and center and people are like, oh wait, they know the name of the president, right? When have they known the name of the Salvadoran president? Never. Even those that are like politically engaged people didn't. It's just really weird. And I'm grappling with that personally. But I think the benefit, right, is that this novel is an attempt to talk a little bit about Salvadoran history and the way it's tied to our contemporary moment, right? And to the lives of Americans whose parents were born in El Salvador. The book is so much about the aftermath of a civil conflict, of war, and of US intervention abroad. And like the breaking news is also about that, right? And I don't know. I hope that like for some readers, like this is a good entry. It's obviously a novel, right? So there's only so much history. Like it's more of a setting and context. But I think people will learn something about El Salvador. I think that will help them hopefully understand the current moment a little better.
Sure. Just in general, for it to be one background in a book, right? Like one setting in a book, in a novel right now. Like that is not, you're not seeing that regularly. So for it to be right now feels very, anyway, obviously that was top of mind.
Yeah. I'm thinking a lot about it too. I don't know. It's that kind of thing, I think, too, where you write about the specific, which leads to the universal. So I was writing specifically about El Salvador and the kind of repression that people experienced there in the late 70s, early 80s. But there are like resonances now because it's not El Salvador that's gone through things like this. And I don't know. It's that weird thing about fiction where the more specific you get, the more weirdly universal it is, or the more people can see themselves in it. It's like such a weird paradox. But I think that's part of what's going on here too.
Yeah, no, it's totally weird. And just thinking about, there's a quote in the book that says, behind every cliche is a glimmer of truth. And that's not exactly what you just said, but there is that element of, to be so specific, it's so universal because cliches are cliches for a reason.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
Yeah.
It's so funny because I don't mean this question offensively and I'll have an answer myself, but like, how do you find that to be true for you? How are you a cliche?
Oh my God, I'm like in so many ways. I think about one really specific thing, and this is about this book, but also about my first book. I think my story collection's a lot about this. I think a lot about the American dream as a cliche, right? Or like an existing narrative that kind of flattens some things. And I am like so the American dream. Like I should be so pro-American dream. It's crazy because both of my parents immigrated to the US at different times, right? Neither of them got college degrees here in the States. They were still able to make a life for themselves, buy a home in SoCal, like raise me and my siblings, get us to a good public school. And then I went to Harvard and then the Iowa Writers Workshop. And then I work in like corporate publishing in New York. Like it is so far from where my parents came. And in many ways, it's less the American dream, right? And but what is like not there, or what, if you only see that kind of version of my life or only those details within my life, you don't see the things that made that possible. My parents' citizenship, my dad's very good like job at the LAUSD school district, and all these factors that a lot of immigrants don't have. And so I don't know if that totally answers your question, but
no, it does. Well, and what's so interesting, and I don't even know if you realize you said this, but I asked the question and you said there's one really specific thing, and that is a springboard of literally what you said a few minutes ago, of the more specific you get, the more universal it gets.
Yeah.
So you have that specific thing. And it's interesting for me, I guess not so much anymore, but at a time I just loved musical theater. And it couldn't be more cliche, or I couldn't be more of a cliche gay man saying that. When it's the cliches are real for a reason.
Yeah, there's something about, totally. It's like that glimmer of truth. And I think the important thing is that you see beyond it, right? Like that I think the danger is where that cliche becomes the only story. That's when you're in trouble, right? Because it just flattened things and, lets bad actors get away with stuff, which is also what this novel is about.
Speaking of musical theater, one of the most obscure references in the book shocked me. Mean Girls the musical?
Yeah.
Really? Of all the things?
Yeah. What's so funny. I've tried to remember. It was another reference initially.
Okay.
And what I wanted was these two characters to bond over like knowing what's going on Broadway.
Uh-huh.
And I want to say that I wanted to reference the Color Purple revival,
Uh-huh.
which was around this time, but the timing was off. Like I think the Color Purple had come back to Broadway the year before. And so
Sure.
time-wise, I was like, oh, that's not total. I could have done it, but I was like, it's not totally right. And so I think I looked up probably the list of shows that came on in the time period that the novel's happening. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
Mean Girls it is. Yeah.
I-
But there's a lot of kind of pop culture references in
There
there, I
are a
think.
lot of pop culture references.
Yeah.
Wait, no, you're not getting away from Mean Girls the musical yet.
Okay.
So wait, so you looked it up. Are you not a musical theater person?
I am a musical theater person, but I dip
Okay.
in and out. So
Okay.
like I haven't gone to it. One of the things I love about New York is being able to like get lottery tickets to go to shows on a
Yes.
whim. It's amazing. But I haven't in the last year gone to that many shows.
Yeah. You're
I know.
busy.
I'm busy, and it's like even with a like lottery ticket, it's $50 at least.
Yeah.
And yeah, I
Back
dip
in my
and out.
day, they were $20 and $25 and $30. Like it was.
Yeah, I know. What a dream. But yeah, and so I don't know that in 2018 I was really keeping tabs on. I think if I heard
Interesting.
about Mean
Okay.
Girls the musical, I was hearing about the stunt casting of Cameron Dallas or whatever because people were upset about it. But yeah, I don't know. There's lots of I did a lot of really serious historical research, but I also had to do some more contemporary pop culture research too when writing this.
Yes. Everyone is obsessed with Renee Rapp now. And I
Yes.
saw her in Mean Girls the musical. That was
Yeah, say what you want about the musical. Like that is one of the great contributions to society. I'm obsessed with her, and that was huge for her. That helped make her.
Yes.
Yeah.
Big fan of hers. She's awesome.
Yes,
And a member of the LGBTQ plus community.
Yeah.
I need to get her on the show.
she's everywhere right now. She must have an album coming out or something. She's nonstop all over my feeds. But obsessed.
Speaking of pop culture or pop girlies, where did your love of Alanis Morissette come from?
Oh my God, I'd say late in life. I feel like I have this relation. I think it's maybe being the children of immigrants. There's something about that, not entirely the explanation, but it's part of it, where I've had to learn about some iconic American or North American artists,
Uh-huh.
like later, like as an adult, because my parents had introduced me to them. So like
Sure.
Alanis Morissette, like obviously I knew Ironic and some of the other songs.
Obviously.
Obviously, you hear those. But I didn't sit down and listen to that full Jagged Little Pill album till, I don't know, at some point in adulthood. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
oh my God, this is good. This is amazing. And so that's where that started. I don't think I wrote about her in this book, but I've been thinking a lot about the last 2 years. I've really got into Joni Mitchell, who's just amazing.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, how messed up is it that I had to go so many years not knowing how amazing she was?
Okay, that was me and Barbara Streisand.
Yeah.
I was like, obviously I knew who she was and she was on my
Right.
radar and I knew some of her music. But when I was in college, I was like offered a free ticket to see her in concert.
Ah.
And I was like, why not? I guess so. I'll go. And Ruben, my life was changed.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so funny. Yeah. I don't know. I think maybe this is why I like writing about pop culture so much. Like, even if it's just references, it says so much about us, right? Like, it says so much about where we come from. It says so much about who influences us, especially when we're younger. Yeah, I don't know. I'm really interested in it as something to
Yeah.
take not too seriously, but like seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously enough to write about it a little bit in my very serious novel about the Salvadoran Civil War. Yeah.
Do you want to share a little bit about how and why she's in the book?
Alanis Morissette, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So another kind of central part of the book is this device called a diffractor, which allows people to view alternate versions of their life, basically, like small movies, short films of lives they could have lived if certain things had gone differently. But there's like a AI-ish chatbot that guides you through that process. And
AI-ish, just putting it lightly. Uh-huh.
yeah, AI-ish bot that guides you through it, and you're assigned like a voice that chatbot takes on. And for one of the characters, it is at the beginning of the book, especially Alanis Morissette. And I think Avril Lavigne is one later on, and it's super silly and absurd on purpose. But yeah, that.
Who would yours be?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. Talk about cliches. I love Lady Gaga so much. Obsessed.
Yes.
So maybe Gaga would help me
You'd want
figure
her
some
to
stuff out.
guide you through your alternate universes.
Yeah, definitely. She can't do anything wrong. And I love her. I love her so much.
I love her too. Musical theater
Yeah.
girly at heart.
Yeah, exactly.
She
There's
really
this
is.
quote she had years ago that was like, when I started, it's so funny. Of course, it's like self-mythologizing, whatever. But I was like, you're so real for that. When she was like when I was starting off in this industry, people said, you're too pop for musical theater and too theater for pop. And look what I did. And I'm like, yeah, you're so right.
Yeah. There's something to be said about, I wouldn't say she created a genre because there, of course, were people like Madonna doing it
Yeah,
before her.
exactly.
But just find that core of who you are and just live your truth.
Totally. Also, I don't know. There's something to be said about people that put effort. And I hope this doesn't sound shady to some of the other pop girlies, but like people who put effort into a performance is like worthwhile, like creative and interesting.
There's room for all of the facets. I think for the whole spectrum, I think you have the pop princesses who just know how to put on a show.
Yeah.
You have a Barbara Streisand, like basically sat on a stool and sang.
Yeah.
And I would have sat there for 6 hours.
Yeah.
And then there's the in between, which of course is the Lady Gagas of the world.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, you have the it factor and you can put on a show.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So we need it all.
We need it all.
Meanwhile, Britney Spears, she just knows how to put on a show.
Yeah. Oh, Britney.
That's fine.
Listen,
I'd watch that too.
She's been through so much that I'll let her get away with whatever.
I know. So what do you think about seeing these alternate or unknown universes? Would you want to?
I think so. And I don't want to give away, because the characters really reflect on this question on is it helpful or not? And that's kind of part of the book. So I don't want to maybe give too much away. But I think personally, the reason I wrote about it is because I find the question of what if super, super compelling. And I always have. And I think it has to do with a couple things. I think that it's a question that immigrants ask themselves a lot. I think, especially when things get hard in your new home, I think there's sometimes the thought of there was a reason I left, right? Either maybe there wasn't enough money, there wasn't enough opportunity, I was being persecuted by the government or someone in my community. There's lots of reasons why people leave their homes. And I think when you come to the States and then you face a different set of hardships, and it's not what has maybe been promised or told to you that it will be, I think you might ask yourself, like, was it worth it? Was it worth it to me leave my home? What if I'd stayed? And so I think that question is really interesting on that level, which is why I'm really interested. I think, again, maybe this is random movie reference. I loved Past Lives. Like, I loved Past Lives. And I think it's because it honors the way that immigrants approach this question. So that's part of it. And then the other part of it is that I left like home. Like I left California for Boston and then Iowa and now the East Coast. And so I've always thought, what if I just stayed in California, a place I love, closer to family? And I think we all have versions of that question for ourselves, regardless.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting too, because in the book, you're seeing specifically alternate universes. You are not seeing the future. And for all intents and purposes, there's nothing you could do about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So that's, I think, where I struggle with that question, right?
Totally.
Like, we won't give away anything from the book, but for me, I couldn't help but think, I don't know if I would want to see anything because it's easier to have regrets, or it's easier to think, oh, what if I could have done, if I did that, this is where I would have been. Or if the opposite is true too, you could go, oh, thank God I didn't make that choice.
Right. Yeah. That sounds like a very healthy approach to it. I think the curiosity is just
I'm curious as hell. And if that was a reality, then I'm sure it'd be different.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think it's just something human about that question. I think like almost everyone I've met in my life asked themselves a version of that question.
Yeah. You saying past lives is so interesting too, because if I had the opportunity to see or experience my past lives, that I might be able to in turn have a better understanding of who I am today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's like the collection leading up to now.
there's like context before you burst onto the scene.
Totally. Versus the alternate universe thing, like, really was breaking my brain because I was like, this is happening right now in a parallel universe that you can tap into.
Yeah.
And that gave me anxiety.
Yeah. It's all, I don't know. It's like this novel is like about the characters and the relationships and the love stories. But it's
Yeah.
also like a big thought experiment. I don't know. I like novels that approach big questions and big ideas. And that's totally why I'm drawn to sci-fi, because sci-fi does that often. And also this particular question of alternate universes or, yeah.
Did you... There was like a thing going around Instagram, I literally think yesterday, that was talking about our universe and how there wasn't a big bang, but it was like something else. And it was like, we're living inside of a bounce, or we're living inside of a black hole.
Oh God, that's stressing me out. Talk about
I know.
anxiety.
I know. So this came out literally yesterday, and I was like, how weird that I'm talking about the universe
Yeah.
tomorrow. Yeah, I don't know where that is, but
Yeah.
anyway,
It's
people
also-
everyone
yeah.
go Google it because
Yeah.
it's interesting.
And also, if people are like curious about it, it's like very much a like sci-fi kind of staple. Like I think there are lots of people who've done it better, but I like Michael Crichton a lot. I've already mentioned Jurassic Park, and he has this novel. It's not his best, but it's fascinating, called Timeline, that is a little bit about this, basically on how like the relationship between like multiverse theory and like time travel, basically. And so I don't know. It's not like I'm particularly scientific or interested in this question. I just really like sci-fi, and it's a question that sci-fi writers have returned to over time.
Totally. And it's right. The book is called The Archive of Unknown Universes. So while it is a big part of the book is really about family and relationships and connection and what we know about ourselves. And speaking of relationships, there's a quote, "Existence was a task best done in a pair,"
Yeah.
is something someone believed. Do you believe that?
I think so. I have believed it at a point too.
Okay.
I'm telling myself that I'm in a very healthy place right now with my singledom.
We love singledom.
Yeah, I think I'm in a good place with it right now. But I think there have been points in my life where it was like, oh my God, it's so hard to be a person. Like this would be so much better if I had someone by my side who totally got me and supported me. And I think like the best relationships are that, right? It's like this feeling that you're going through life as a unit. And so, yeah, I think there's some truth to it. I don't know that it's like, I'm like, that's the only way to do it. But I think there have been times in my life where I felt like that was the only truth or the best way of doing life.
I am obsessed with this because in my heart and soul, maybe in my next life / my next career move, I want to be a matchmaker.
Okay.
What are we looking for? Who's your...
Oh, God. For me,
Not to
I
put
don't
you on the
know.
spot. Yes,
Oh
all of
my
a sudden, I
God.
want to be your matchmaker, Ruben.
Okay. But I also I'm such a romantic that I'm like, but I don't want a matchmaker. I want to be at the local bookstore and they walk in and they ask me what I'm reading.
Listen, I can manufacture it. You don't need to know. I'll be your little fairy godmother.
Yes. I don't know. I want someone who's funny. I very much appreciate humor. They have to be, unfortunately, as smart as me or smarter. I love when someone's smarter than me, or at least I think they're smarter than me.
To Harvard, that's going to be hard.
I know. It's fine.
No smart.
I have aspirations. I don't know. But yeah, I think there's something, I guess this is like more woo and abstract, but I think I like the idea that like and I probably write something. I was reflecting on my first book. I really didn't write about romantic relationships very much. And so I wanted to do that because I love reading about love and romance. And I think somewhere in the book, I write about how I do think a relationship is just choosing someone over and over. And I would like to find the person where that's like an easy or as easy a possible thing to do. So
yeah. Yes.
I think
Listen,
that's the
as a
key.
person who's been in a relationship for over 10 years, that is not always easy, but
yeah.
it is definitely easy to want to make it easy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
This is something that comes up in the very first letter of the book and is a question I've asked you before, and I'm asking you again to see how things have maybe changed or shifted.
Yes.
But do you believe people are made for each other?
No, I don't actually. I don't. It's too close to the idea of soulmates for me, which I think is really, and I don't know, maybe it's just scary to the idea of a soulmate. But I think that this is my grand theory on this, is that there are, whatever, 8 billion people in the world, right? I don't believe that there's one person for you, but I think that there are probably a handful of people who are equally good matches. And I think that, like, I don't know what the number is, but the probability is that it's not one.
Oh,
yeah.
So not to put a hole in your argument, but I wonder if you're actually saying you do agree with that. Because saying that people are made for each other doesn't mean that they're the only person made for each other. But you're saying that there are perhaps a handful of people that are your like correct mate. So does that mean that people are made for each other?
Yeah, that's true. I guess the reason I'm like allergic to the idea of someone's made for you, I think it like lets people off the hook a little bit, right? It like makes love seem like this predestined, and like this book is so much about fate and destiny, right? And I think when it comes to love, that idea I think makes it feel like, okay, I'll have to find that person, and once I find them, everything will be perfect. When I think we both know that like relationships are actually about a lot of work and like making like incompatibilities work, right? Or like finding the person who wants to work towards the same things as you. It's like it's much more proactive than the idea of soulmates, I think. But maybe I'm being really narrow about the idea.
Again, like I wonder if you're not with someone who's also willing to put the work in, then they're not quote unquote
made for you.
Yeah,
that's true.
So I'm just saying. I'm just trying.
I hear it. This is like the tension at the center of my, I think, romantic life is that I love so much. I'm such a romantic, but I'm also incredibly like practical as a person and at times cynical. And so like those two parts of it's like head and heart. They're like they're always back and forth.
Too smart for your heart, man.
I know. I gotta let go. I don't think I'd be able to write novels though if my brain wasn't working like this. So
I know. That's fair. That's totally fair. I love to, and I will sprinkle some fairy dust your way, and you won't know what's coming.
Yes, thank you. This is what I need. I need everyone doing their part to help me out here.
Okay, the made for each other thing. How do you feel about like astrology?
I probably mentioned astrology at least once because I was thinking about astrology when thinking about this like technology, right? This idea that you have this technology, it doesn't really change anything about your life, but what do we get out of it? I feel the same thing about astrology. Like I think I'm a Capricorn, so maybe it makes sense that I'm pretty skeptical of it. But I think it shows our need for guidance. And I do think that tangibly it offers a lot of people that. It offers people a way of making sense of the world. And so while I'm a skeptic, that's why I'm not gonna like judge someone for being into it. Or I'll tell someone I'm skeptical, but like I'll hear them out.
But you also just said I'm skeptical because.
Yeah.
Did you say Capricorn? What did you say you were?
Yeah, that's why I'm skeptical.
I'm skeptical because I'm a Capricorn.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah. So you're saying you do believe in it?
I'm saying that I situationally allow myself to either pretend I'm really into it or I'm like, maybe. What do I know? The one thing I will say astrologically that I've been really convinced of is Saturn return. I have heard so many people talk about their Saturn return and talk to me about it. And I'm like, and then I think I've just started mine. And I'm like, yeah, like things are a little chaotic and crazy. Like maybe there's something to this.
Isn't Saturn return when you're like 27? Are you only 27?
I'm 28. Yeah.
Kill me.
But yeah, I also think, but then, okay, bring in my big brain that doesn't let me just let go. And my big brain's like, yeah, just being 27, 28 sucks. That's what it is. It's not Saturn's place in the universe. It's the fact that being 28 is hard.
Yeah, it's a hard time in life. But I don't know. Is there a perfect time?
No, never.
I don't know. I don't think there is. Yeah. You were talking about the technology. There's something about false promises.
Mhm.
And I think especially right now, the world that we're living in with AI and everyone turning to ChatGPT for answers and for
Yeah.
guidance and for help. And what do you make of that? Or as a young person, how do you feel about how do you feel about it?
I'm super technology skeptical as a person in general. And I think if you read my work, the stories, this is about technology and our relationship to it. The short stories I published last year are also a lot about technology and our relationship to it. And in general, I'm
The short
skeptical.
stories I published last year. You mean your
Yeah.
book, There Is a Rio Grande in Heaven,
Yeah.
which
My
was
book, There's
nominated
a
for
Real...
awards and like really famous and popular. That little book of stories.
That little
Okay.
book of stories that maybe people have heard of, hopefully. Yeah, I think I'm skeptical because I think that people want to treat, and this is how I feel about AI specifically, they want to treat technology as this kind of silver bullet solve all for our problems. And I don't know that technology alone can do that, can fix anything, because there has to be like the human will to like also address, to use the technology in a positive and ethical way. And also sometimes with AI, I'm like, do I need to be using AI right now? Like literally every company you can think of is talking about how they're using AI. And I'm like, I don't think DoorDash is working fine. I don't think I need like DoorDash to be telling me how they're using AI. And so I'm not like totally against it, but I am pretty skeptical and I'm worried about I'm basically worried about people over promising on what it can do. And I was thinking a lot about that when I was writing the book. That was actually, so I started writing this book in 2019 and I feel obviously we knew about AI, but the conversation was really different. It wasn't everywhere the way it's become in the last like 2 years-ish. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So early on in editing, I think my editor, the amazing Jessica Vestudo at Mariner, was like, I like the technology. It's really interesting, but I think you need to write a little bit more about it, like how it functions in the world. And she
Mm.
very smartly and presciently was like, maybe think about how conversations about AI are happening. And that really clicked something for me. And I think part of the
Yeah.
revision was trying to write a little more explicitly about, and so there's definitely some kind of parallel between AI today and the way this device is being approached.
Yeah. Back to love for a second.
Yes.
I promise I won't, it's not about you. But there's a component in the book that is really about romanticizing what life could be like as an
Yeah.
adult gay man.
Yeah.
What was that like for you as a young person?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I mean, it's the real challenge as far as the book went, I think, was trying to drop myself. And maybe this is worth saying. I don't know if we've said it. Like, there's a large part of this book that's like historical fiction set in the like late 70s, early 80s. And I had to drop myself into a gay man in the 70s in El Salvador, part of this really masculine revolutionary movement. And I was like, so what would someone, like these questions that maybe I have some thoughts on, like, what's it like to be in the closet? What's it like to imagine marriage for yourself or not be able to imagine marriage for yourself? I think I could use the way I have thought about these things, but I did have to really situate it as much as possible in the historical moment.
Yeah.
So I think like maybe like my feelings or thoughts about these things were an entry point. And then I was like, okay, let's make sure this feels like realistic and true to the time period.
How did your experience compare to that of this person in the 70s?
I mean, that's such a good question. I don't know. I think I feel very lucky to be living at the time that I'm living. We're living in a really scary time, I think, where queer rights and trans rights especially are being politicized and pushed back against. Like, it's definitely something I'm thinking about in a different way. But I did grow up at a time where there was this sense of like optimism, I think. And so I had a hard time actually accessing, because I feel like I experienced a lot of optimism. Me and my friends were able to grow up in a time of optimism, the Obama years and like all that.
How old were you when you came out?
It's like a trickle over the years. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But I don't know, probably not till college though. Yeah, pretty late. Yeah.
Okay. But that's interesting to compare, right? So while there is optimism, I think there's still perhaps an element of discomfort or fear or whatever.
Yeah, totally. I think they're like, I don't know. Well, maybe not always be, but I think
Yeah,
There still is, and I think for understandable reasons. And also, like,
absolutely.
different people's context is different, right? Like, I think, like, living in New York, living in a big city, it's, oh, this is a non-issue, right? But you go even just a few towns over, and it's like, you're still in New York, like a liberal state, but like people's attitudes towards sexuality and gender are really different. And yeah, I think the hard part was like, grappling like capturing that fear and anxiety that I think still exists in some forms, and like thinking about what it'd be like if that was like everywhere and in such a like particular context in El Salvador. That's the nice thing about fiction, though. You don't have to get it completely historically right. So you can just, find your...
Yeah, and I think that's partly why readers often assume that they're reading versions of authors on the page, because things don't need to be perhaps historically accurate per se, but they're through the lens of this author. But right, it's interesting because like you came out at a time where gay marriage was legal.
Yeah, basically. Yeah,
You know,
totally. It was, yeah, it's weird. I think, and one thing, like going back to this question of trans rights, something I've been really thinking about is, it's scary times. I think even for, I don't know, people in the US are saying like, let's roll back gay marriage, which is like super scary. But I think like the most, like, to me, there was a time where gay marriage was like hard to imagine and hard to talk about, the way that I think now trans rights is hard to talk about and for some people to imagine. And it feels to me like the fight has shifted. The way people talk about trans, I don't know, like I grew up hearing some awful things about trans people even after gay marriage was quote unquote solved in liberal California. I don't know. I guess like in general with my writing, I think a lot about historical parallels. And so like the way people talk about one issue is really specific, but we talk about things the same way about different things in similar ways. And I think that's something that I had to think about to write this book.
totally. And it's interesting because I think that me saying, and you came out at a time where gay marriage was legal, was less about that specifically and more about acknowledging everything's changed yet nothing has changed.
Yeah, exactly.
Like in theory there's quote unquote less to be afraid of, and yet there's not.
And there's also the context of, this is a really international book. Like some of it, like a lot of it takes place in the US, but it also takes place in El Salvador and in Cuba. And these are countries that today have really complicated and regressive views on sexuality and gender. Yeah.
Similar path. There's a quote in the book about people find joy among all the difficult parts of life. What are some examples of that for you?
Oh my goodness. Hanging out with my friends, going to the club in the summer when I don't have to coat check my coat. I'm thinking recently, I moved to Queens about a year ago and my life changed because I love my, like, where I live, which was not the case at my last apartment. And like a good meal, like, can really turn around a week for me. And there's a lot of options for that around me. Yeah.
It's interesting to hear your answers because I think for me, my go-to is glass half full. And looking on the bright side and trying to be optimistic. And so I interpreted that as, in the face of something difficult, to see joy in that specifically.
Yeah.
Which I think is very challenging. And so I
like that.
Well,
I love that.
I know. I don't know if that's really, I don't know how possible that is all the time.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Here's this hurdle that I'm facing that will only make me stronger. Right.
Yeah,
That is not, that's one way to look at it. But I think your perspective of doing the things that bring you joy in times that are difficult is.
Yeah. That's also, I think that's important to me. And also just maybe this goes back to this idea that like when we have one narrative, whether it's a cliche or whether it's a prejudice or whether it's a stereotype, right? It flattens everything else. I think that's true of like trauma and difficulty, right? Because even at the hardest times, there are moments of relief. And I think that's something that I had to think about with this book because the historical parts are set amidst the start of a civil war. Like, that's heavy. But I think what keeps people reading is the fact that these two men are trying to make it work, right? And I needed to write some scenes where they got to just hang out and profess their love to each other, because that's always happening, right? Like people are still going through breakups and getting together and having children, even amidst these like big, crazy social and political moments of unrest.
Yeah, that's where the book takes place and when the book is coming out.
Yeah.
Yay!
Yes, I love living through history. It's really fun.
Well, speaking of, the last thing I want to talk to you about, every moment in history is told twice.
Yeah.
Per the book. Can we talk about that?
That's good. Did I write that?
You did.
Wow.
By the victors and the losers, and it's up to us to seek the truth.
Oh, that's really good. Wow. I haven't read this book all the way through in a while, so I'm like, okay, that's enough.
Yes.
That's good.
Okay, I can write a sentence. That wasn't even a direct quote, but something along those lines.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
I think a lot of this book came from, as an undergrad, I was studying history and literature, so I took classes in both departments, and like the mind-blowing part of the history stuff was like, there's no objectivity. And I was really lucky to like work with some really amazing scholars who were thinking about this question of who gets to write history and how power affects history and the archive. I think that's why archive is in the title. And basically, like, we get the official story, right? That usually is usually in the service of a government and what they want to memorialize or to put in as the official history. And there's a lot of power in that because governments are powerful, right? Mm-hmm. But throughout it all, there are other people who are writing history in their own way, right? Whether it's like letters that they wrote to their loved ones during those years, as appear in the novel, or others like pamphlets and art and memoirs and all these other things. And I think historically, we've only tried to look at those with power and how they write about history. And I think it's important to look for the other people who were either erased or pushed to the sides. And I think a lot of historians working today are trying to do that, which is exciting.
Mm-hmm. Well, it also makes me think about that there are three sides to every conversation. There's one person's side, the other person's side, and the truth.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think there's some version of that too with history, right?
Yeah,
and
totally.
Who's rewriting it and who's telling it and who's sharing it.
And that's nice. The nice thing about fiction is that you can try to approach that truth in a new way, right? Like you can try, especially a novel, which is so expansive compared to a short story, you can try bringing in as many perspectives as possible. And that was part of the goal here, I think. Yeah.
I'm so excited for you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you. Archive of Unknown Universes by Ruben Reyes Jr. out now wherever you get your books.
Yes. So
go
exciting.
Get it. Yes. And think about who your interlocutor would be.
Yeah. And also, if any cute single people are listening to the pod, I'm on Instagram. You can find me.
Yes.
We're working on this year.
If Gaze Reading becomes the reason why you fall in love, I'm going to officiate the wedding. I'm registered in the state of New York. Don't worry. I'm so excited. It's already happening.
You guys can all find me on, you know where my
on the
DMs
socials. Yes. Oh my God.
Guess Gay Weird Time.
Well, Chloe Michelle Howarth, welcome to Gaze Reading.
Thank you so much. I'm buzzing to be here.
Where are you coming from right now?
I'm in Brighton in England. Really nice, sunny, gay, seaside town. Yeah, I love it. I've been living here for like 4 years now. And it's such a vibe. I keep saying I'll move home to Ireland and then I just keep not doing that.
I do feel like the Irish authors that I've spoken to do not live in Ireland anymore.
I know. And I was just in Ireland last week and I was like, this is it. Like, I want to live here. But then I'm not living there. Like, I don't know. I think it's more the admin of actually moving home that I just don't want to deal with.
What does that look like over there?
It's like, just even packing a bag for a weekend away, I'm like, I don't want to do this. So if I actually had to
you're not
move
like just
my
talking.
life,
you're not talking like paperwork. You're talking like
talking,
sort of labor.
Yeah, even just booking the flight is like insurmountable. I'm like, I can't do it.
Fair. Okay. How does the vibe differ?
Well, they're quite different to each other, but I think I love them equally. I probably love my hometown a little bit more. It's so tranquil there, so peaceful. It's beautiful, like the nature, the scenery, it's all stunning. And it is really one of those places where like everyone knows everyone and everyone is so nice that, yeah, I love it. Like it's such a community. Whereas here in Brighton, a lot more lively, there's a lot more going on. It's like definitely a very queer place, but you don't really have that community because it's a city. Like I don't really know my neighbors too well, and I say hello to them, but it's missing that kind of personal touch. But yeah, it's nice. They're kind of a tonic to each other because they're quite different. So I'm kind of lucky I get the best of both.
Yeah, I totally understand that. You kept saying the town you're from in Ireland. Where is that? Can we give it a shout out?
It's a tiny, tiny little village called Rosscarbery in West Cork. But it's gorgeous. It's coastal and it's right on the water. We have this tiny little square, like a village square. And yeah, besides like the beach and the square, it's fields and like mountain, like cliffs that you can walk on. And if you love walking, it's the best place to be and you don't mind the rain. It's like the best place ever. It's so picturesque. But yeah, similar to what you're saying, like there's not a whole pile going on there, but that slow pace, like it suits me sometimes,
Yes.
Yeah.
There's something very special about it.
Yeah.
Americans are so obsessed with Irish culture, with Irish writers. Like the people who love reading Irish literature is so interesting to me. And like obviously is a great thing for you.
Yeah.
We're sort of just like yapping about Ireland, which I'm obsessed with. But like The Bee Sting comes to mind.
Yes.
And one of my favorite books in the last few years is The Rachel Incident by Caroline O'Donoghue.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. Like there's so much good Irish writing coming out at the minute. I love both of those books. It's a funny thing. It's Irish writing is definitely like a genre, but as an Irish writer, I'm not aware of it in that way because
You are.
because I am an Irish writer. Yeah, exactly. It's the same way that like I read a lot of like queer books and a lot of lesbian books, but for some reason I don't consider my books to be part of that, even though they are, because they are lesbian books. I think it's just sometimes I forget that I also write books. Maybe that's what it is.
Well, we're here to talk about both of those things, both what you're reading and what you're writing. Chloe, as my guest gay reader today, I have to know, what are you reading?
So I want to shout out this amazing queer book that I read. I finished it just recently. I have it here. I can hold it up.
Please.
But it might be mirrored. It's called
Nice.
Dogs of Summer. Oh my God. It's incredible. So I could talk for 24 hours about this book and it's only small, but it's just, it's like, I couldn't believe it. It's one of the best books. It's my favorite book I've read so far this year.
Really?
I think it's one of the best.
You've read 3.
Yeah, it's the only book I've read so far, imagine. I think it's up there in like my favorite books I've ever read. It's just excellent. I didn't know what to expect from it. So basically, it's about these 2 10-year-old girls and they're living in Tenerife. And one of the girls is sort of beginning to fall in love with her best friend, but because they're so young, she doesn't really understand that's what it is.
Yeah.
So we're kind of seeing it as that, like as a reader, you understand, but from her point of view, she's just sort of frustrated by what these feelings are. And the language is so like, I was shocked. It's very visceral. It's like violent, disgusting prose. It's like, it's gross. So much of it, I was like, what? But it's like, it's done like that on purpose because I read this interview with the author where she said she wanted to like capture the last kind of moments in a girl's life where she's an animal before she gets made into a woman.
Oh, interesting.
And so they literally, these 2 girls, like they behave like animals and it's just bizarre. And what's even more fascinating about it is that it's a translation. So I obviously haven't read the original. I've read the English version and all of the language in the book is so like arresting and so refreshing that I'm like, oh my God, this translator and the author, just the way they must have worked together on this. It blew me away when I realized, I kind of thought it was a translation. I was going, no, it can't be. It can't be, because it's just
too specific. And
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
I was like, how the hell did they even like, there's a lot of words that are like misspelled because it's like a 10-year-old like just using some English words here and there. And I, like the specifics of that, oh my God, I was just blown away by it. You have to read it. You have to.
All right. I wrote it down. I'm going to check it out.
It's excellent.
Translations are always so interesting to me. Like Frederick
Yeah.
Backman, all of his books are translated into English because he writes in, I assume, Swedish. And it is always astonishing to me that a vibe and humor and very specific things can be translated meticulously.
Yeah, exactly. And then, but then I wonder, I'm like, what am I missing out on? Is there must be some like specific cultural things with translations that they have to sort of phrase in a different way. And I'm amazed by the fact that like this and the original are like, they're two different books.
Yeah.
And if someone else is to translate it, that's a third different book. Like, I just find it so
What language is
interesting.
it translated from?
It's from, I believe it's Spanish. Or is
Oh.
it Catalan?
Oh,
It's translated by the person who, have you heard of the book Boulder by Ava Baltazar?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same translator. So
Interesting.
I think I'm going to try and read everything that she's translated, because she's just, and she seems to do a lot of like lesbian fiction. I don't know if that's
Oh.
what she's just been given or if that's what she seeks out. But yeah, Julia Sanchez is the translator. I'm quite amazed by her. She's brilliant.
And that'll be interesting for you to see as well how much of herself is in her translations.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
I think, yeah, like even though they're two different authors, those two books definitely have a similar vibe. Like there's something about them. When they were translating my book Sunburn into German, the translator had to message me, and in Ireland you'd say like, we're going on the session tonight, which is like just an evening of like drinking and maybe drug taking, kind of a party for no reason. And it could happen like out or just in someone's living room, but it's like a gathering to drink essentially. And the translator messaged me and she was like, what? Just, can you explain, like, what is this session? Like, where are they going? What is this? And I had to just be like, I don't know if there's going to be a word for this. Like, I don't know how will you translate it?
How will you
know?
translate it?
Yeah. And because I don't speak German, I don't really know like where it ended up and how that whatever phrase is used is going to land. I find it so interesting.
And then it's up to the translator to interpret
Yeah.
what that feeling is and put it in the words of the language that they're translating into. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
You talked about reading a ton of queer and lesbian books. Are there any others off the top of your head that you'd want to shout out? I think it's just always good to know, especially from a different part of the world, what people are reading.
I am weirdly reading a lot of translated fiction at the minute. I'm not sure why.
Oh.
So like Boulder, like I just mentioned, Eva Baltazar's Boulder. It's a really skinny little book. Brilliant. I'm also reading this amazing book called Feast While You Can, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
like, have you heard of that?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, like queer horror. I never really read horror, but I think this is going to be my year to get into horror. Maybe queer horror first to warm myself up, and then
There's another queer horror book called The Lamb.
oh, don't talk to me about The Lamb. I loved it. Have you read it?
I didn't read it, no, but I'm like very aware of it.
My God. So I was nervous because I'm a vegan and it's a lot about cannibalism.
Even the cover alone, if you're a
Yeah.
vegan, would turn you off.
Literally. And like, I don't even cook meat. Like, I don't even like to wash up plates that have had meat in them because it makes me feel sick.
Yeah.
And so I was afraid going into it. But actually, I couldn't believe like it's written with such grace and such like the cannibalism is like, it's really dignified and it makes sense, and it's not there just for the sake of like, oh, spooky, scary, disgusting, gripping thing. It actually is beautiful and it all makes sense within the story. And I was just I was like, what a talent Lucy Rose is to make me want to read about this. Like,
This is your year of queer horror. Look at you.
it actually,
Translations and queer horror.
yeah,
We figured this out.
that makes me sound so cool and sophisticated that those are my like things I'm interested in right now.
But we have to talk about Sunburn, your book, which for you is old news. You're like, this has been out since 2023
Yeah.
in the UK.
It's fun though, because like even the version you have there is the US cover,
Yeah.
which is so different to the cover that I'm used to seeing.
Oh,
It
funny.
actually feels like it's all new again. Like it's so exciting. And I can't believe that it's like having a proper like rollout in America. I never imagined that
Yeah.
would happen. So yeah, it's
Tell me, what's your
crazy.
elevator pitch for the book?
Okay, so actually,
Which
I
you've done
had
100 times.
I had to ask my partner, Aaron, to like create the elevator pitch because people would ask me what it was about and I'd be like, oh, I don't really know. It's about like romance and class and all. Like I was doing it from like too broad. So Aaron told me what my book is about.
Listen, bless Aaron. Thank you, Aaron.
Thanks be to God for Aaron. So it's queer coming of age story set in the 1990s in rural Ireland. That's my elevator
Fab.
pitch.
Fab. I've heard you talk about wanting to paint the picture of the beauty and the boredom of the time in Ireland. What was that like sort of reliving?
So I wrote it during COVID and I was living in rural Ireland at the time. So I was like, this is as intense as this could get. I guess except for the fact that I had the internet. Like that was the one thing that like made a difference. But it's like when I was growing up, so full disclosure, I'm not a 90s child. I was born in 96. So I didn't really grow
Oh
up in
my
that
God,
era.
baby.
I didn't grow up in that era, but like it's not too far from what I grew up in.
All right. For you, it's historical fiction.
Yeah, exactly. But
For me, it's my trauma.
yeah, oh dear. It's
I
like
actually remember what it was like growing up without a computer.
oh my God. I remember having like the big like fat backed computer and like the
Yeah.
tower and everything. And I remember dial up and things like that. But during COVID, I didn't even really have to cast my mind back that far because I was like, well, actually, this is it. Like it's quiet. I can't go out. I can't do anything. I can't see anyone. Like it really did take me back to that type of lifestyle, which was so useful when writing the book because I didn't like it was all there before me, just waiting to kind of be written about. Like it gave me so much source material. But I think as well, like I definitely thought when I was writing it that it was like a uniquely Irish thing. But I have realized that it seems people from anywhere in the world seem to relate to like being a teenager when you're like, I actually just don't want to be here anymore. I want to be somewhere else. It's a funny thing.
Even if you didn't grow up in a small town, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think when you're young, like the idea of like your family and your neighbors and the people around you knowing like who you are and what you're doing and knowing your business, I think that's awful when you're young. But like the older I get, the more I really crave that. I think there's actually such safety in it. But yeah, I think when you're a teenager, being like seen in that way is just the worst. It's like repulsive.
This is so funny that you bring this up because I have been asking all of my guest gay readers of late, in an effort to amplify the people around us, if they were to die tomorrow, who would they ask to delete the search history on their computer? Depending on how old they are, they laugh.
Yeah.
They say that's such a good question. And then we sort of like move on to talking about who they would amplify. There are other people who see that as sort of a ridiculous question.
Yeah.
But I think because of growing up when we did, and the trauma of people being up in our business at that specific point in time,
Yeah.
that means something to us. Whereas some older guests are like, that's a dumb question. Why would you ask me that?
My God, that's actually like a deep question, isn't it?
That's what I think.
Yeah.
Well, because, it also says a lot about, you and who we are and who we would sort of turn to in a time of need. And
Yeah. I think.
so you're not allowed to say your partner, but who would it be?
Oh no, because that's who I would have said. Okay.
No.
Who would it be? Probably my friend Surika, my good friend Surika. I think I would ask her because she lives in London. We don't live that far from each other, but we don't get to see each other that much. And we voice note like all day, every day. And so she kind of is my Google in a way. Like if I'm just talking and I think of something, I'll just ask it to her. And I feel like she understands me in a way that like she wouldn't judge me if all I'm Googling is like Kim Kardashian net worth, Khloe Kardashian net worth, Kylie Jenner net worth. She'd be like, that's interesting. Like, let's talk about each of that. You know what I mean? Like little
Why
things
is
like
that
that.
important to you?
Because I love playing a game with people where I say like a celebrity and I say guess their net worth. I'm sure it's always wrong on Google, but I love doing that. And I also love guess the age. So I'll be like Tom Hanks and then someone has to guess their age. And I love like just then Googling all their ages.
Another good one can be how tall are they?
Yes. Oh my God, that's a really good one. Although, do you know, it's embarrassing. Like, so a lot of my search history is words that because I need synonyms for them. But I would be embarrassed if anyone saw it and thought I didn't know the definition to those words. Like I looked up I looked up the word dramatic today to get synonyms for it. But I would hate someone to come along and be like, does she not know what the word dramatic meant? Like that would be really embarrassing.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder it now with the popularity of ChatGPT and AI, it could be very interesting to like put in your chat history or your search history and say, describe this person to me.
Oh God. Imagine mine would be like, she's boring and stupid.
And is she Irish? We can't tell. So funny. Well, I am so excited that Sunburn is coming out in the States.
Me too.
I hope you have a wonderful time with your friend whose map you're using as a background.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, he's like in and out of the room. I'd say he's like, what are they talking about?
Shout out to him. Thank you for letting you use his space. Chloe, Michelle, Howarth, thank you for being here. Everyone go get Sunburn. It is out now wherever you get your books.
Thank you so
Congratulations
much, Jason,
for your
having
American
me.
debut.
Thank you. This was so fun. I love this. Thank you so much.
Ruben, Chloe, thank you so much for being here today. Everyone, appreciate you as always. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will see you next week. Bye.